Alright, so as a follow-up to my Mark III video, here is the internals look. Starting out down here, it's just plain and simple, surprisingly. You just have yourself the Rev Trigger. Pull this back, it activates the flywheels, of course. But rather than having a straight connection directly to the flywheels, it actually, let me just flip these guys over, first goes through this little like micro board here. So obviously, as you can see, these two leads are negative and positive underneath this square thermistor. Those are for the flywheels themselves, or in general, just the power source that it comes from, which is obviously an XT60 plug to whatever you use. And so then, yeah, you go from there. It crosses through this motherboard right here, and directly to the motors. As far as I'm concerned, the green chips on here are just like some sort of resistor board, so there shouldn't be much issue if you just like solder them off and just make a direct connection to the motor terminals. So I'm not going to go through that trouble since this thing's already good enough for me. From there, however, when it comes to select fire, obviously when using this in the semi-auto mode, you have yourself a fully mechanical system with the strife trigger. The pusher is up here. So whenever you obviously pull the trigger, this lever arm right here swings this guy forwards to slide the dart in and fire it. And if you notice right here with the gears, when it comes to full auto, once you activate that fire mode, when you flip the switch that's on the other side of the shell over, all it does is just push this little ramp piece forward, pushes this ramp piece forward, and activates this switch. That switch then is basically the full auto motor. So when you push it forward on the firing mode switch, it pushes the lever right here so that once you pull the trigger, let me try and emulate this the best I can. The trigger and its little like horn in the front will push the nub onto this button to activate the gear system, which obviously this motor right here powers. And so then the automatic pusher motor here also has teeth on itself. So the moment you activate that trigger right there with the actual dart trigger, that's when the gear system starts moving and starts pulling this, running this guy forward. And then the return spring pulls it back, moves it forward, pulls it back, moves it forward, pulls it back, and so on and so forth like that until you're out of darts. So that's just a vague idea of how it works, essentially. So as far as I'm concerned, this gear right here, this big white one, doesn't have a complete set of teeth. So it will need to be aligned a certain way in order to work in this blaster if you do modify it. So once it runs out of that chain of teeth, or I'm guessing this, it would be this. So that gear is complete. This guy, however, is the incomplete one. So once you reach the cycle where it's all the way up here, that dead space will allow this system right here with the return spring to yank the pusher rod back into position in order to fire another dart. Now this piece right here is problematic to modders. If you take a good look, you don't even need to know much about flywheels to know that this piece is thin. Drac already broke his. I wouldn't be surprised if anyone else has broken theirs already if they were to mod it in its stock configuration. Thankfully, Out of Darts has a 3D printed one ready to go on the stores if his breaks or if it's problematic enough to warrant such a thing. Which in my opinion should warrant a 3D printed or even a metal casted replacement part. Because I myself want to upgrade this pusher motor. 3 darts a second is nice, but I wouldn't mind throwing in a Valkyrie motor in order to kick this guy up to like 5 or 6 DPS even. Now that you have the power system in the form of double A's or LiPo to power that system up. So yeah, this motor is pretty stock, but obviously it has the spacing in there in order to take any other upgrade motors which are 130 sized. Likewise with these guys, because of the wide spacing in the shell, it should take 130 or 132 size motors even. Don't think 180s will work. That would probably still require some shell cutting. Mainly because of this piece right here, this plate that shows the Mark III logo on the outside. So there's that. Overall though, that's just a general look inside the blaster. The motor cage screws are pretty long. They're these guys, but they're all the same size, so don't worry about losing these. And then, of course, the gearbox pusher, which I removed, are these shorter size screws, so just keep that in mind. So yeah, that's a general overview inside of the blaster from the XC60 plug all the way down to the flywheel rev trigger, in which, this thing will basically work like a Strife in semi-auto mode with this guy flicking forward and back. But the moment you go into full auto, that's when, of course, the gearbox system activates. When you push the trigger forward and this lump right here pushes this lever into pressing that button, and therefore starting the gear train, in which the trigger pusher will be pushed forward and then slam back, push forward, slam back. I hope that was clear enough. Hopefully this video isn't too long. Around 6 minutes we're good enough there. So this will either come out before or after my Mark III overview. So I hope you guys take this knowledge, take it into consideration. Any metal makers or casters out there, definitely look into making a metal casted version of this guy. So yeah, I hope you guys enjoy your evening. Happy modding out there. Me personally, the best I'm going to do is just that pusher motor swap once aftermarket parts come for this guy, and the flywheel swap because of the serrated teeth. Now that's good and all for the high crush factor. However, for the dart lifespan factor, it is terrible. I used fresh Dart Zone Max darts this morning, and by the evening, almost all the darts that I had in the magazine, the same 15 that I've been using, had their heads ripped off or their foam bodies terribly mutilated by the teeth. So it's serrated, it is nice. I don't think it's as accurate as they would, describe it to be. So chances are I'm going to switch to something smoother along the line of, worker smooth flywheels. The only issue with these guys that I have on hand is that they are too big for the flywheel cage in here, so they will scratch against the sides. Hopefully the Magilla or Daybreak cages that are bound to come will in fact account for these larger wheel well sizes, which might even bring a bit more crush for even higher FPS without, biting into the dart while it's squeezing it.